Tim Costello, good to be talking to you. You've joined forces once more with Nick Xenophon and Andrew Wilkie. Didn't have much success last time round. Are you more optimistic now, and if so, why?
Yeah, I am more optimistic. Firstly, Nick has 3 senators in the Senate. The Greens have always wanted gambling reform. And, of course, Andrew Wilkie, though on the crossbench and not in a minority government, will be actually pretty critical for a whole range of other legislation. Look, most importantly, the community is now outraged. The feeling for reform is stronger. The anger at sports betting with parents, families saying, how come my kids know the odds? How come they're always being groomed to gamble? That anger is at fever pitch. 95% of the public would cheer if the Prime Minister said, right, that's it. No more adult product, namely gambling, in family G-rated time, namely when kids are watching. But
if you're in a situation where there is no hung parliament, as there was during the Gillard years between 2010-2013, where she gave a written commitment to Andrew Wilkie on gambling reform, then reneged, why would you be any more optimistic now where you have a situation that there is a majority for one of the major parties in the lower house, and therefore the crossbenchers don't have the kind of authority, the kind of influence, the kind of leverage that they had back then?
Well, now you have 2 different leaders. Certainly Bill Shorten, and I've chatted with him. He knows the damage pokies are doing. Sports betting, he knows, is on the nose. Malcolm Turnbull went even further. When the Gillard reforms with Wilkie were on, he surveyed Wentworth, his electorate. They were for $1 bet, maximum $120 an hour losses. That's what the Productivity Commission recommended. That's what we want. And Malcolm asked me up to his office. We actually made a little video of him recommending $1 bets. And he said, Liberals really don't like poker machines, and I don't like them. So you've got public opinion that's actually red hot. You've got 2 leaders who we know are more centrist. You don't have a leader, as we had last time in Tony Abbott, who I think was absolutely captured by the gaming industry. And you have a Senate where Greens and Nick Xenophon, to get certain legislation through, are very, very strong on gambling reform.
Do you think then that the Xenophon forces in the Senate and the Greens actually need to make their support for particular pieces of legislation conditional on a guarantee that there will be genuine gambling reform?
Well, if they did that, I'm sure we'd get reform. That's a matter that they're going to have to choose, because every other interest group is saying make a conditional on our issue also. And Nick wisely says, you know, when it comes to horse trading, you might end up with a donkey, so I'm not just going to lock myself in. But I think it's very clear that when you've got the alignment of these stars, the public mood that is outraged about gambling all over the TV, grooming our own kids, and Australia with the greatest number of problem gamblers in the world by far, with 20% of the world's pokies and with the fastest pokies. So public opinion is absolutely saying we need reform. Not banning, just slowing them down. People can still have their recreation, distraction time. I think this is actually a very fortuitous time to think about reform.
You mentioned Malcolm Turnbull, also the question of Bill Shorten too. In the wake of this latest push, this latest initiative, have you had a chance to speak to the leaders of major parties, and what have their attitudes been?
No, I haven't had that chance. I know Nick has spoken to them, and you can ask him about what he discussed. But certainly the sense that we have to do not just centrist and sensible things, and things that show the Australian public that it's just not stalemate and screaming at each other, but some sense of leadership and bipartisanship. When the public overwhelmingly want gambling reform, I think both leaders get that.
They may well get that, but the gambling industry has been entirely contemptuous of what you say is the overwhelming tide of public opinion, have used their money, their influence to forestall it. Won't they simply do that again and don't major parties run the risk that if they were to support what you're suggesting, that this question of freedom to do as you choose, a nanny state argument, as it were, will have as much force this time as it did last time?
Yeah, the clubs, pokies lobby, are the equivalent here of the NRA in America. And I say that not just because they give huge donations and they're a small, very cashed up sectional interest group against public opinion, but because under the Second Amendment it was a ball and musket, and that was the right. And now it's semi-automatic weapons. It's very similar with pokies. When pokies came in 1955 in New South Wales, you couldn't lose much money. It was like bingo. It was slow pulling a lever. Now you can load up $10,000 in one go. Just like semi-automatic weapons became horrendous in their power and destructivity, so pokies have become here. The other thing both sides actually recognise is the work of the great late Neil Lawrence. His documentary showed the thing that I'd never understood, why so many people who play pokies get hopelessly addicted, much more than any other form of gambling. And he showed that going to Cambridge, having MRI brain scans, that when you actually are waiting for the 5 pyramids to come up, there's always something on the 5th one that you need for the jackpot, what's called a near miss. It's above or below the line. In fact, you're lost as soon as you press the button. This is a con. And it releases the dopamine that actually hits the pleasure centre of the brain with the same force as cocaine or ice. This is why it's a predatory, dangerous machine, and so many people who play them get hopelessly addicted.